How's it going, everybody? We're live on Facebook. Michael's not here yet. I'm going to put on an intro and let me see. This might be him. Resurrection is not limited to icons, but unlimited to the life of our souls. We have all walked the dark nights when we thought we were in the right, and we have all walked in the light when we thought there was none. Oneness is underestimated because it covers far more than peace, love, happiness, and the trappings of dogmas. Oneness is to understand that all of the dark nights hold the same face and that everyone's pain is equivalent when weighed against their singular life experience. Oneness is releasing every possession which really had been possessing us all along. The old family gripes so easy to blame on another, the religions and icons forced on ancestors at the price of land and freedoms forsaken. The government conspiracies and royalty belied of the dark demagoguery of foolish human pride. The chains and the stains, the shames and the blames, that even if we're true, serve no purpose but to hide us from ourselves and each other. Divinity is always becoming, always on time, leading to the first and last, the end that begins. I am soul. All right, let's bring Michael on up here. How's it going, everybody? If these shows resonate, please share. And thank you for the love and support and contributions. What's up, brother?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. I'm glad it's working. I'm in a new spot, so it's always...
You've been moving around quite a bit. I can identify with that.
Yeah.
I hadn't talked to you guys in a while. I think you and I did a couple of shows. You and I and Ron did a couple of shows. And you guys, you know, I love the fact that you just share everything. You know, you share the highs, the lows, the, you know, discombobulations, the perfect flow. That's probably the most important part of your expression, I think. That's just my opinion. But yeah,
you.
and thank you for doing that. Thank you for inspiring people. So where are you at now?
So I'm currently in a town in Oregon called Williams. It's a very small town out in the forest, out in nature, next to beautiful mountains and got little streams running by and lots of moss. So I'm in a nice, peaceful, quiet place.
Wow. I think the last time I talked to you, or the second to the last time, I can't remember. I think you weren't you in Hawaii? Or you guys were in Bali or somewhere? Somewhere.
I don't know where the last one was, but we've been moving a lot. In the last like half a year, we've been in the U.S. We were in Thailand. We were in the Middle East. We were in Israel and Jordan and
My gosh.
Sinai, and then we were in Australia for a month. So we've been
That's right.
bouncing
I
around.
saw that. Yeah, I
Yep.
think you were in Thailand when I talked to you. And
Yeah.
you guys were anchoring some serious stuff. We were too. I think you guys were like had separate houses for a little bit. And I could relate to that too. But it's an interesting thing. You know, we've got like we just were able to start broadcasting again for like
Mm,
7 weeks. Thank
mhm,
you, Karen. And so Morgan got this intel to get couples on, right?
mm, mhm.
And so I think in March there's like 16 or 18 different couples on. And
Well,
so, to that point, I mean, it is, what is it when you're going through it with somebody, I mean, it's got some really great things and it's got some really in your face things, doesn't it?
yeah. Um, I'm holding Ron in my heart as I go into this. Maybe he's watching now. We have always, since the beginning of our relationship, um, we made agreements with each other that our relationship would be for spiritual development, that it would be a technology that we would use to grow and to learn. And we've always held the truth that what's coming up for us is our stuff, and
Yeah.
and the other person just happens to be the stimulus that reactivates that old stuff in our own consciousness, and then through the relationship we're able to talk about it, get perspective on it. um, there's things that if I were just off by myself, they're all right. But when you're with another person who has their own perspective, their own needs, um, then there's compromise, there's conversations that come up. So, and for us, we're traveling. I'm sure you can relate to this. We're together a lot. We're next to each other a lot, traveling to many
Yeah.
places. Often, really, I mean, traveling. Excuse me, just a moment. Okay. Yeah, so traveling can be stressful enough, yet
Mhm.
we're often going power site, sacred site. So there's just constant work being done. So that's part of the reason why I'm in the place that I'm at right now. It's just so I can have a few days to just kind of focus in on my own thing and see what's going on within me without being stimulated by another person.
Yeah,
Um,
it's yeah, no, that space is necessary. You made me think of two things. One is the space is necessary because it's not always about, projection. I mean, that's actually, I'm sure it's been the same in your relationship. It's just further and further and further gone away because each person's catching it. But there are those moments, regardless of what level of projection there may or may not be, where you just got to decompress. You just got to
yeah.
like go into yourself. We recently did that, and we're the same. We've been together nonstop since I think April of last year, and so we got in an RV. We're traveling. Got to Florida, did a bunch of things, hopped from one place to another, hopped from one place to another, and then she's like, I gotta get out of here," and I was like, "Well, good, because I got to be alone." And so she went and stayed with a friend for a few days, and and it was interesting because we had, I don't know if you and Ron have had this, but we had simultaneous experiences at the
Mm,
same time,
mm,
you know, and things like both of us had to go lay down and meditate at the exact same time because we felt an energy, and a couple other things happened. But yeah, I think that's one of them. Is you just, when you're in the space of someone all the time, there's still, that allowance to allow the other person to decompress and do what they have to do.
yeah.
And then what really struck me about what you said was, you're there where you're at, and everywhere you go has a purpose. You guys are united in that purpose. You're working with the grid and doing the things you do. And that's, I can identify with that too. That's like, it's like the purpose, the mission is one and the same, really,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. What also is coming up in my mind is just because of the work that we do, we're very aware of um, how the mind creates and where how past events are creating, triggers now and all this kind of stuff because of the quantum healing work that we're doing and because of our own practices. So that makes, we're like fine picking those little we can really see those little parts in each other that are
Yeah.
that could grow, that could be nurtured. And so there's really I'm so blessed to have a partner who has like that hawk vision, that laser vision to really help me see parts of
I
myself
got
that I
one of
would.
those. I got one of those too. So I know who the Michael is and who the Rick is. That's all I can say. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
I'm getting onto it. Are you? I mean, I'm not, I'm catching myself now,
for sure, for
you
sure.
know?
Yeah, I think both of us are doing really excellent, and most of the time we're really good. It's really just tiny little stuff. It's almost like um, it's not even from our relationship. It's like old stuff. It's like
Yeah.
really, really
Yeah.
old, and it's just like the junk drawer stuff. It's not even
Yeah.
like massive, massive traumas that we're clearing anymore. It's just like these little glitches in our consciousness that are just kind of like little bumps on the road. They're
Yeah. Yeah.
not really
I,
so big.
yeah, I can relate to that. To me, that's what a part of one of the aspects of 2020 has been like. You're right. It's not like this grimy, greasy stuff. It's like you clean the drawers out, and now you're just going to dust them out.
Yeah, yeah, just
And
a
the
little
other
dusting.
thing, yeah, and the other thing you said too that strikes a chord is that it, even though it's all personal, at some level, it's felt very collective to me.
Yeah,
Has it to you?
yeah, yeah. I feel like we're 8 billion people learning how to get along, and how to honor each other,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
learn how to communicate from like really from a space that um, opens the next person, or really helps to settle something. It's a art that we're all working through. So we really look at our relationship. Like I feel that once, like as we grow in our confidence and our embodiment and our love and our coherence with one another, then our gifts and what we're offering and what we like, how we show up as a couple creates a whole other possibility and potential for others in the world.
Absolutely.
Particularly because we're two men in a same-sex relationship. And growing up, I didn't have any role models. I mean, I remember when the first kisses were happening on television and how much of an uproar was happening. And then what has been presented as role models for same-sex couples don't really embody the values
Mm,
that I hold to be near and dear to my heart.
yeah.
So we also feel that honor and responsibility of showing up as same-sex couples that are growing spiritually together, that are in service to the collective and to the planet. And
Yeah.
so we also feel that in our work together.
Yeah, that's powerful. I've got a friend, Hung Win, in Canada, and she's got some pretty strong dragon energy in Atlantis.
Mm,
And she talks about the 12 temples of Atlantis, and then there was a 13th one that got dismantled. And I don't know if that's a metaphoric or literal, but the energy of it is that there was 12 temples or 12 frequencies in Atlantis, and there was a 13th one being developed. Now fast forward to the contemporary times, and she's kind of downloaded and researched what she calls a rogue frequency, in a good way, a rogue doing something different, pushing the envelope, expanding further than anything's been expanded, and that it's rooted in these partners who have a balance, masculine and feminine. And one of the attributes of it is same sex and other
mm,
frequencies that were not accepted or norm in history.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a very multi-dimensional, multi-purposeful type of frequency as I feel it, as I feel
Yeah.
it in. But
That's
yeah, so I think that's because because physically you're also dealing with the physical part. If someone's not looking at the energetics, I can see how that's a very important task.
yeah. I think that I'll speak to to gay male specifically. While there's so many colors and variations of how relationships and sexuality are being expressed here on the planet, but I think that there's a really strong and often violent um, cage that men are put into to be a certain way, to show, well, to not really show affection, but to show strength or machoism. Or there's so much around how a man is supposed to show up in this world and what he's supposed to do. That's a huge amount of weight put onto the male-embodied species. For Ron and I to be together, to be merging in this divine union, to be showing affection to each other the way that we do in public, to hold hands, to take care of each other, to be tender, to kiss each other on the cheek, or even those little signs of affection, I think are sending really powerful notes out into the world.
Absolutely.
One for people that are wanting to see men take care of each other and to be tender with one another, but also it's triggering those beliefs in other people that have problems with that, have issues with that, have old programming in the back that say all the things of how men should be and how sexuality should be expressed. So while, you know, while it's very sweet for others, I know that it's really challenging for others. And Ron and I have a very um, powerful message to carry. And because of the quantum healing work that we've been doing and the sites that we've been traveling to for years, we have a lot of information to share about consciousness, about the history of the planet, about where we're going. And if someone can't get past the homosexuality, if they can't get past this, the love that Ron and I have, if it's, they won't be able to hear the message. So I
Yeah,
feel that I think it's a really beautifully designed initiation for some people. Um, you know,
absolutely.
so
Absolutely. I mean, you say all that, in the effects of it, and I look at two individuals with a trajectory or a balance of masculine and feminine, like so
mhm,
many people and so many couples that are starting to come to light. And all the stuff you said is very true and significant. But I think of the two people doing it, the energy of the two people doing it that are aligning their human free will with courage and guts and love, and the impression that has in what we might call the non-physical or the etheric. But that's a real energy that's coming into play more and more for all of us every day, and it's because of what people like you two are doing. you know
thank you. Yeah, divine
Thank you.
androgyny, having that divine feminine spark, having that flame of the divine masculine, balancing out and exchanging within myself. Like, I know for myself, my challenge has sometimes been, well, it just depends on the situation. But let's say in conflict, I'm in a reactive state. It's it takes practice for me to get into the nurturing, into
Yeah,
the to change the direction of the momentum, because so much of my genetics, so much of my the little bits of programming that I have left want to be right, want to
yeah,
and I'm really fine tuning. I have such a sensitive partner energetically. He's super, super sensitive. And I know that my field is quite strong. So when I'm in that anger state, I have knives flying out of my
yeah,
field.
yeah.
So watch out, anybody that's
I
around
can.
me.
We've had the
So
same path. We've had the same path, like we said
yeah.
earlier.
So I'm just
Yeah,
I'm learning how to come into that nurturing, soft,
yeah.
motherly,
For yourself too,
from
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing. They, like the partner points it out to you, and you start to become aware of, that starts it, and then at some point. you figure out, or for me, it worked that way when I figured it out that I could, if I started treating myself that way, then it just happens, as within without.
Yeah, there's only one of us here anyway.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, you talked about part of your purpose with Ron is where we're at and where we're going, kind of
Mm.
like the history or the story of it. Can you get into that a little bit?
Yeah. So for the last, I mean, right when I started doing the quantum healing sessions, I was reading Dolores Cannon's book, and it started to become really clear for me that I was getting a really some very rare perspectives of history through my clients. I was getting like amazing story after amazing story after amazing story. Where Dolores was, when we did the training, it was said that a lot of us would get potato picking lives, like the lives that were really just like super simple and agricultural. And I was getting these really significant events. So it became clear to me that it would become a book, that I was being given a book and an account of how things happened or may have happened. So I've been working on that book for about 3 years now, off and on. I go through like major, work phases, and then I take a few weeks or a few months off. And so that's also what I'm doing here right now in the forest, is just diving in again. Um, but I also just got back from Australia. So a lot of the times that we're going to these sites, there's so much history in each site, whether of colonization, like who took over that piece of land, tore down the old sacred site, put up a new sacred site. So sometimes you'll see these really ancient places next to a cell phone tower or a military base or a clock tower or something. You can just see so much has happened in these spaces. Just in Australia, and I believe it's like 45,000 year history. I also spoke with a Maori family that is carrying stories that share a 65,000 year history.
Wow.
Um, but the story of Earth itself goes so far back. A lot of the in the hypnosis sessions, a lot of focus has been towards Atlantis and what was happening there and the cataclysm that's happened there. Very little has been shared with me about Lemuria. Little bits and pieces, but it's all what has been said several times is that as a collective, we're just not ready for the amount of information and light that would come through in the revelation of these stories. But
Is
it's
that,
also,
I mean, does that seem to be, I want you to continue. I just want to ask you a quick question because Atlantis has been coming up a lot for, I don't know, last 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. And I've seen it out in the community and within my own experience. What is it what you're saying that information and data and code is becoming available or becoming more available? And that's what they're referring
I
to when they
think it's
say we might not be ready.
I think it's starting to come out, but I think part of the reason why the Atlantis stuff is coming up is because we're repeating the same things. We've got towers flying up all over the place. We've got satellites going up, emitting
Hmm.
frequency. We've got experiments happening with DNA and all this kind of stuff happening right now. We have
Hmm.
issues, things going on with atomic weaponry. We're starting to we're continuing to work with that part of science, and it just doesn't seem like we've really learned, or we're at that place where like some awesome learning can happen and we can really
Hmm.
come into sacred law and divine balance as a species. So I think that's part of the reason why Atlantis keeps coming up in the various ways that it is because that's where the major samskara is. That's where the major imprint is coming from. That so much trauma in our consciousness as a collective and individually is coming from that period,
Hmm.
and it's being reactivated now in the land, in the people, in the field of the earth, for us to clear it, to learn, to integrate it, and
Yeah.
move forward and find out really what true power is, and not the externalized, out of balance power that we've been doing for quite some time.
So it's almost like it was the last timeline. It sounds like we took it to a certain point, it destructed, and you got to kind of give some credence to what you're saying. Like we're kind of at that point. There's some similarities.
Yeah.
There also seems to be, and I don't know, I don't have recollection of that detail of Atlantis, but I wonder what the level of personal growth was, what level they were at compared to what we're at. You know what I mean by that? Like,
Yeah.
we're how many people are taking the responsibility as a co-creator to help determine the collective experience, you know,
Yeah,
as
it's
opposed to like projecting or focusing on the external.
yeah. It seems like um, it would be hard to kind of measure that out because the human DNA was different then.
Yeah.
Also, the exchange between star nations was, very much part of it, um, and we're in a different dimension of consciousness. If anything, we're earning some pretty big muscles right now. We're having to like climb up out of the
Yeah.
sludge.
No
So
kidding.
something I want to point out as well is
Yeah.
that um, there's even more before Lemuria, other civilizations before Lemuria that aren't really talked about too much. And what I was learning as well on my trip is just how many different gardens of different varieties of humans were tried out in different places all over the world. They
Mm.
try to start, the star us, but really, are these other beings from the stars would introduce a human species, a certain genetic line, to an area and see what it does, see how it works out. How does it survive? How does it build community? How does it use its
Mm.
resources? And then once that, if a certain species would make it and survive, then they would come down and they would share information about spirituality and agriculture just to kind of bump them up a little bit and make things a
Mm.
little bit easier. And then if things didn't work out, there, that species would somehow, a specific frequency of human would um, dissolve out of the Earth story somehow: earthquake, volcano, disease, war.
Yeah.
And then maybe another group was being worked on by another star nation
Yeah.
group here to play it out. And so there's just there's so much history that we're discovering
Yeah.
now from many, many different civilizations. It's just so elaborate. But I think what I want to point out, because someone was speaking to me about some indigenous wisdom when it comes to agriculture, and what they found out was that there was like three different experiments that happened with the sweetgrass. One sweetgrass was replanted and left alone. Another one was planted and harvested for making baskets, and then another harvested by taking the whole plant out of the earth. And they just wanted to see, when they were trying to um, replenish this plant in this particular area, the crops that worked the best were the ones that were harvested by hand, or the ones that were picked straight out of the ground, because of the human interaction, because of the connection
Yeah.
between the plant
Yeah.
and the human, and realizing that that connection, that relationship, actually helped the plant flourish. And that's why the human was brought to this planet, was to give a physical vessel for angelic beings of light to come
Mm.
into their creation and
And
to
play.
experience it and play and to
Yeah.
nourish it and to take care of it. And this is what I think over these next few months, there's going to be a really strong. Um, so this is coming from the Council of Light and from the Higher Earth Council that governs processes happening here. What they shared with me is that over these next few months, there's going to be a lot of clearing happening in the DNA around fear that blocks us from doing those service projects,
Hmm.
to doing those initiatives to really help Gaia out, because so much deforestation is happening. There's a lot of pollution, a lot of corporate greed that's just causing some really nasty stuff. And so there's many of us who are feeling like we want to do something, we want to help, but then there's some fear, there's some belief systems, some old trauma that's keeping us from really stepping out and really taking that next step in leadership. And so
Yeah.
over these next few months, these energies are going to be helping us to clear that, so that people can really launch these projects and really
Yeah.
um, tend to the garden as we were meant to. Yeah.
And so like when you're doing these sessions, you said you were told in the school that you in the course that you might get, potato pickers and such, but I have to believe that the practitioner is attracting, an energy or a frequency that's the, equal to them. So I can see how you might be more privy to some high level stuff. But does the stuff just come up as in a historical narrative,
Mm,
or is it through their personal uh, recollection of their past life or whatever?
hmm So the information comes up. Okay, a few things. One is they being, the hierarchy of light and how they guide people to come to each practitioner. That client comes with information that's going to help also the practitioner. So through the process, the practitioner receives some codes and information that helps them, or some reflection about their own life.
Hmm.
And oftentimes I don't the interview is just about their life and what's been happening. That's the unpacking time. We're taking everything out and putting it on the table, to look at. And then once we go into the regression, that's where the information comes in, and we have no idea where we're going to go when we go onto this little journey. And yeah, the book that I'm writing, The Path of Illumination, I have a whole ancient future library. So this book's really a library. It's not just a book.
Hmm.
It's got manuals on the galactic story of, the bigger picture of creation and how the Earth was created and what we've been doing, ascension and descension cycles. I've got
Cool. It's like
the
a
court.
reference book almost.
Yeah, I created an ascension library for
Hmm.
us all to work with and to use in our communities. And the next section is like the micro story. This is about the individual soul's journey, going through the different programming, awakening, different, all that kind of stuff. There's a hands-on healing manual that teaches people how to work with divine energy for self and planetary healing. And then the ancient future library starts at that first explosion of light, which we were all there for, and we exploded and we went out to create. And um, and so it journeys through that into stories about Isis, about the death of Osiris, and we've got lots of Mary Magdalene and Jesus stuff because there was so much confusion around that story. So I think that they gave me some really clear storylines to show different sides of what was happening there, and that it was a known thing. It wasn't just like, oh, this thing just happened. That we had been preparing for this. We've
Right.
since, a very, very long time, and Jesus's life was a culmination point. But what's really cool is the future timelines, where it's showing people after the major shift in consciousness, what's happening on the planet, resurfacing projects for inner Earth, the exchange that's happening with the star nations, what the body's able to do,
Hmm.
what community is like then. So it
Oh,
really gives a lot to look
there's
at.
that's a lot. That's some good information there.
Yeah,
Let's pick one for a second. Let's pick one
yeah.
for a second. Because it was interesting when you said that, how this kind of developed, where different star nations were, kind of spawn or seeding, species and seeing how they would do and all that. And then there would be an interaction at some point, which we got plenty of documentation of that. But and I was wondering, I thought, I wonder if we're going to have that occur. But
Mm,
now that you've telling me more about the book, the role, and I guess the, what would I say, the daily experience, or what would it look like a day in the life? Would Star Family be present? Would
mm,
Inner Earth Family be present at some point?
yeah. Well, I think that um, they're making themselves more available now, to those who are in the frequency to be able to perceive them. So it's kind of like a soft disclosure now. It's like leading up in the dream time, or out of the corner of your eye, or starting to receive internal messaging. Because I think it's going to be quite incredible. It's a whole other part of the earth
Yeah.
and life. There's still so many people on the planet wondering if there's life beyond the
Yeah.
planet, or besides humans and
Well,
animals.
at
So
least I think a lot more thinking about it now.
yeah, yeah. So I think it's going to start off that way. There are people starting to see craft in different places and times,
Yeah.
but it's going to build up. I think what's shared with me is not very far in the future is, large craft
Yeah.
and technology being shared to help with cellular shifting in a really rapid way. So,
Yeah.
but I think this will also somehow, all this consciousness stuff, somehow it's going to work out that only those that are in the frequency will be able to perceive this happening. It'll
Yeah.
be like, and I kind of had a taste of this the other night. I woke up, I was having a dream, and something was coming at me in my dream. And I woke up to me like shooting both of my legs out and kicking up into the air. And
Wow.
as I woke up, I felt my feet contact this energy. The energy moved backward. I could still see it. My eyes opened, and it was still the hologram from the dream was still overlaid in my
Wow.
physical reality. And it moved back, and then it dissolved. And I was like, whoa, that's new. Like I've never experienced anything
I
like
haven't had one of those. I've had a
that.
lot of experiences. I never had one of those.
So
I
I
had
think
this.
that's what it's gonna, that could
Yeah.
be maybe how it's perceived. It's
It's
just
like they're,
the other
yeah,
holograms are starting to
yeah,
come into our awareness.
yeah. Kind of like they're bleeding through. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, now that I'm thinking about it, since you brought it up, that's it's more likely, at least it seems that way from everything I've gathered, to happen. It happens on an individual level, you
Yeah.
know? I
Yeah.
mean, we've had things happen as a couple, and it's pretty common, but it's not like out there everywhere where a bunch of people can see it. Went out to the beach when I got here a couple of weeks ago on the first night to go watch the sun go down, and I saw a portal open up to the right side of the moon with all these colors, and I was standing there going, "Man, why isn't everybody just looking at this thing?" But I started looking around, and people were doing their own thing. I mean, it's weird.
Yep.
Um,
Not everyone has the eyes to see and the ears to hear. That's for
And
sure.
what about the information that's come in about our abilities?
Hmm. This one's really exciting for me. So this woman was describing a group of humans in these bodies that were shifting between physical and luminous. There was this exchange going
Wow.
back and forth, and their hands were touching the earth, and they started to call up trees, like to really lift up, like these luminescent um, plant plants up out of the ground just through their intention. And
Wow.
there was a woman that was lots of flying. People really like to, they see that one a lot, where we're able to move a lot faster through space, but
Uh-huh.
also through time, that we can shift our body to another location on the earth just through intention. There was this talk about women going off into the forest and nature spirits and the plants of nature helping her to deliver her child next to glowing pools of water because the water had been cleansed and restored. So that
Far
one
out.
was really cool. Yeah, where the vines were actually helping to carry the child out of the woman's body. So I think we have no idea what we're about to step into. It sounds really
Yeah.
fun.
Let me see what your take is on this now. I don't remember what shows they are, but two or three shows people, and then Morgan too. Morgan picked this up the other night when we lay down about the elementals. The elementals, A, had been waiting for this.
Mm,
They're ready. They're happy. They're coming into, they're bleeding over a little bit more now.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And then, you know, I think also of inner earth. To me, like what you described to me, and I've never really had anything I could bank on in terms of inner earth, a download that had described what their environment was like. But to me, that's what it sounds like. I think that's
mm,
going to be a big one. You said a minute ago about, there's people that, and there is that don't even consider, star family. But then
mm-hmm,
if you break it down to people thinking about, is there inner earth brothers and sisters?
mm.
That's going to be a huge one, and
Huge.
seems to be coming up more. I see people posting about it and channeling about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for those who are ready to really open their mind and to release their old um, imprints, we have such magic to look forward to and such prosperity and abundance. And we just have to hold that note while all the other stories are playing out around the planet.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's like
think,
night and day, isn't it? It's like night
yeah.
and day. It's like what do you want to put your efforts into? I mean, I'm not saying this to, make light of anything or anyone, but there is this world out there that so far has been unseen. There are people that were medium, psychic, so on and so on, but it's becoming more and more, it's bleeding more and more into our experience. And then there's the old stereotypical, what's on the world stage and coming out of the major, mainstream media. Like, which one do you want to choose? Follow the
Mm.
fairy tale, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and also like because I'm going back and forth with this too of like how much to like as a public speaker, um how much do I focus? Do I focus on it at all? Do I talk about global
Mm.
events? And I think it's really, first of all, most of the world doesn't even know that what we're focusing on even exists. That's like they haven't even started their initiation into the mysteries, a lot of them, or it brought up a lot, they've kind of shut it out. So I think that we have a noble responsibility now to acknowledge when we see that somebody's going through their process, whether they're going through the dark night of the soul, or we can see the light starting to sparkle in their eyes, that we can sit with them and we don't need to share about extraterrestrials right away. We don't need to share about inner earth beings right away, but we can be the priests and priestesses of this new paradigm. We can nurture that love and that curiosity and that spontaneity out of um, our other brothers and sisters on this planet that are just starting to peek behind the veil. And I think a major entry point is going to be global events and showing a higher picture of why things are happening that way. And I think that for myself, I've had to clear a lot of aversion around talking about politics or or there's all that stuff. But this is what most of the people on the planet is looking at. This is what is feeding them. And so we need, I think it's a really big responsibility to point out some deeper meanings behind what's happening there so that they can start to tune in to their internal experience and try
Yeah,
to understand
that
from a higher perspective.
yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that's a really great point. In other words, to be able to, well, we got to find zero point in everything.
Yeah.
I mean, really. So, I was trying to write a post this morning, and I couldn't get through it, but it was like, it's not the things that we identify with that so much that bring us to zero point. It's the things that we don't identify with that when we bring them in our heart, bring us closer to the zero point.
Yeah.
It's the things we think we're not. And that's why things such as what you and Ron are doing by the example of your day in, day out life and your purposes and bond and everything and your
Yeah.
courage to put it out there.
Mm, thank you.
It, you know, Impressions like that
Mm,
are the dynamic that are really going to feed the that bleeding of the other dimensions coming into this one.
yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about the 0 point thing because I'm studying a lot. I'm reading a lot right now about samskaras and the yogic traditions and how they looked at consciousness and looked at the mind. And this is why I think um, regression, hypnotherapy, these practices are really, really, really important because they're working with the samskaras. The samskaras are like those grooves in our mind. Stimulation happens, and all of a sudden our mind is pulled in a different direction, or there's those little fluctuations of thoughts that happen. When we're in that 0 point space, when we're focused on the absolute, it's incredible. It's so nice. We want to stay there forever. But what ends up happening is some type of stimulation comes through and activates a samskara, and it pulls us out of that 0 point space because it's just an imprint within our field. So I think what's also very important is to notice those fluctuations. What takes us off? Where does that? What's that root? How can I clear that so that we really can stay? The yogis believe that when you clear that last samskara, that's when moksha, liberation happens. That's when you're in nirvana. All of a sudden, if you're looking at the Buddhists, tradition. So I really, this is a whole new thing that's shifting my whole perception about what these quantum healing sessions are about. It's obviously a very ancient technology that was rediscovered recently, but um, I'm super hyper focused right now on what my mind is doing and what's happening in my internal experience, because I am so delighted to be making um, focusing my life efforts towards this nirvana, towards this moksha state, because I think once a person does that, once they merge with their Christ consciousness, every single thing that they do uplifts the whole planet, even
Yeah.
just sitting in meditation. And that's where I'm that's my trajectory that I'm working towards. I want to get into all those nitty gritty parts of mine and let them go and open up to the absolute.
Right on. Yeah. And you mentioned the word quantum. Uh, I mean, it seems pretty obvious that we're learning at warp speed, like when we were babies.
Mhm.
I mean, it's picking up, and I got to assume that that's out there for everyone. But in terms of like something like QHHT, uh, and I think you're right, it was something that was utilized before that's been rediscovered and expanded as people are expanding and coming into their own in terms of their skills and abilities. Do you think that they will have the opportunity to access, you know, regress and be that facilitator and that patient kind of, I guess, said in so many words at the same time? Or do you feel that someone needs to be there? And I'm not saying right now, I'm just saying, do you think we're going to walk into something like that?
Can you maybe say it one more time in another
In
way
other
so I can
words,
understand?
in other words, do you think I'll have the ability at some point of expansion that I'd be able to regress myself and basically take myself through a QHHT
Mm.
session?
Yeah, beautiful question. So going back to those samskaras, going back to those kind of like little blankets that have been put over top of our energy field, as we remove those, as we move our spiritual potential up through our different energy centers, and we start to make our way out of the crown, up into the soul star, up into the other centers, that's where we're going to access all of the knowledge from all of those other lifetimes. But we've got to
Mm,
clean, as was said in the Bible, got to clean the robes in preparation for this day.
mm,
We've got to, and the robes are our field, the layers of our energetic
yeah.
field. So as we clean and clear those, we're going to, and this is happening for many already. You're starting to tune into past life memories, or starting to have, other experiences coming through. And we for sure will be able to, as we do this work, focus quantum, if it's meaning multidimensionality, we'll be able to focus into the different aspects of ourselves that are either happening parallel in the future, da 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 da, and feel what's happening in their consciousness and use that information. And I think that's what they mean when they say these bodies become avatars.
Hmm.
We connect up to that higher consciousness, that larger pool of information that we have access to once we clean and clear everything. Um, and then from there, we'll be able to build those cities of light. We'll move.
Right on.
We'll terraform. We will control the weather. We'll do all kinds of incredible things.
Jordan Peterson talks about his awakening and he split, kind of like higher self human,
Hmm.
and he describes it in really good detail, like this 10-minute video I watched. Where do you think, number one, does that sound familiar? Did you ever split? And is that kind of like a prerequisite to hitting that
Mm.
higher level, that beehive level of communication with the universe?
And when you say split, what do you mean?
Well, like when you're almost like watching yourself.
Mm.
He talks about how he started to listen to everything he says. And why did I say that? He said, and he made a deal with himself. He was like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to be consciously attempt not to say anything unless it's authentic, real, and necessary, and whatever other.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, but so I guess what I'm saying is that is have you already reached that point when you
Yeah,
get there? Is that when you get there, or does it come later?
that's a great question. It's like both answers, I think. my initial split happened in 2008 or 2009 or something like that. I had just finished. So there's two components here that really shifted me. One was I just finished reading The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, which was a whole new concept for me. And I took my neighbor of mine brought over a tab of LSD, and I took this LSD, and I was like all of a sudden launched out of this time-space reality, and I was shown that I could be a part of the drama on the earth, or I could be up in this like vast space with these light beings. And so as I came back into my body for the first time, I was the observer watching everything happen.
Yeah.
I was
When
not.
did this happen?
This was like 2008 or 2009, I
Okay.
think.
Okay.
And now
Yeah.
that has continued to unfold. I think the yogis would call that the Atma, that great I am, that higher consciousness that sits back and observes. I'm not. There was also in my dance training program, there was a coach that was working with us, and she was sharing that we're not dancers, we're the consciousness that perceives ourselves dancing and experiences the dance, but we're not actually the dance. We're watching it all unfold and watching it transition. And that concept really opened it up for me. But I think now, as I'm really starting to work with those fluctuations that I am not, and really come into what I am, then I'm really able to make more deliberate and conscious choices, because it's not reactive momentum from the samskaras directing my life, but it's really that silent witness that's in there saying, guiding
Now,
me with love and softness.
and now how has that affected your, as you've gotten into this part
Mm-hmm.
of it? Because it sounds pretty recent, like the last few months or whatever. How has your external, how has it looked? I mean, has it been like, well, of course it's going to be the same frequency, but I mean, is it getting smoother?
Mm.
Is it becoming miraculous? I mean,
Mm.
is there more peace of mind? Is there still a lot of ebb and flow?
Yeah, probably all of that. And I'm getting quieter. I'm talking less, a lot less. I'm talking
Ever
a
since you said
lot
that
less.
about, ever since you said that about your partner, about Ron at the beginning of the show, and like my partner's really really super sensitive and can pinpoint things and tell me exactly what's going on. And I said, we're on. I know
Zip it
who's
up.
Ron and who's Mike, but yeah, I the same thing here. It's happening to me. I mean, people are even making comments. Todd, you're getting
Yeah,
softer on the
yeah,
comments, and they're saying it's not necessarily a bad thing, but
yeah.
but I mean, it makes you think like, well, do I need to go back to the other thing? No, but
Well, I just shared with
yeah.
you recently that I went to an ayahuasca ceremony. I went to 2 nights of ceremony, and
Mm,
one of the things that was talked a lot, that was like a ground structure for the 2 days, was noble silence.
yeah.
And being in this space where there's just like incredible music and so much information coming through, and the music would hit these high notes and then fade off, and everyone would be so delicate, like who was going to make
Mm,
the first noise, who was going to breathe a little deeper so that somebody else could hear it. And I cherished that silence because it was so profound for me.
wow.
And once I left that weekend of ceremony, I was just like, I want to be so deliberate in the sound that I create on this planet,
Mm,
in all the different ways that we make sound and vibration here. Like, I want to be so careful. And it
yeah.
just brought me even more into that witnessing phase
Yeah.
where I could just be like,
Great point. That's a great point.
yeah,
Because it's everything. People say, well, your words, it's your thoughts, it's everything you do, every motion that you make.
the
It's
impulse to move. Like, what's that
yeah.
coming from?
It's
Are
the
you in
yeah,
control of
yeah.
that? Or is it like a wild horse dragging your carriage around?
Hmm. It's like
Um,
the level of you know tension or lack of tension in your muscular system. I mean, it's
totally.
you're an energy ball.
Yeah.
We're really not. We're really like an energy star, because we're projecting out and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, this is cool. So you're tucked away and you're going to start beating out more of this book. And
Yeah.
you guys got any plans for 2020?
Oh, so many.
Yeah,
We'll see
yeah,
how it unfolds. But I think a big part of it is getting this book down because it's the
yeah,
foundation of the New Earth Ascending ministry and whatever that's going to grow
mm,
into in the different trainings that we're doing. So next thing after this book is really crystallized or parallel to it is our own quantum healing training that we're developing and the way that we're doing it. That's including the information from the samskaras, energy work, information. So it's hands-on healing for
that's the
self.
way. Yeah, that's the way. Yeah,
Yeah,
like remix.
yeah,
You know, like you're
and
taking the QHHT, you're taking the other stuff that you're studying, and you're going to make your own
yeah.
mix to
My
it.
s-
And
my
that's
s-
yeah,
my spin with it has been like there's the and it still works. It's not, I'm not putting either one higher or above, but for the most part we go to a healing session, the practitioner does something to us, and then we, they give us the experience basically, and then we leave or something
yeah,
like that. And how I'm facilitating my sessions now is right away we're connecting to our higher consciousness. Right
yeah,
away the client is performing healing on themselves. So there's
yeah,
no hierarchy within it. We have our different roles, but both people and all of the hierarchy of light are working together to create. So
yeah,
it's not so passive. It's like, it's really a mutual interaction. This interaction together helps to create the healing. So that's a big part for us, is to create that, and also the different embodied light training things to make the ministry, um, to help, you know, help others really step into their leadership as a light bearer and a voice for the light and a voice for truth and a voice for
yeah.
Gaia.
And
So that's, we'll see how that
mm,
branches out.
that method, that practice, like the one-on-one sessions that you're describing, I mean, that's new too, because the old one was born of the codependent frequency, patient, client, numerous visits, and this is the putting into motion the frequency of where two or more gather. So
Yeah,
you're actually when you open up the field at the beginning, you're merging together, opening the field together, and everything
yeah,
that brings in, the multidimensionality and all that.
yeah,
Yeah, that's powerful.
yeah.
Yeah,
My sessions are
that's probably
ceremonies.
why you're.
It's a full-on ceremony.
Yeah, yeah, that's probably why you're getting the information you're getting from these sessions.
Yeah.
You
Well, I
know,
think starting that
uh,
way, it helps to clear, going back to those samskaras, when we really open it up as a regenerative field of ceremony, and we start to pull out and get really honest about our life experiences and what's happening.
yeah,
Once
yeah,
all of that happens and the practitioner and the client get to this like really tightly woven, intimate space with one another, and there's
yeah,
trust and honesty and transparency, the hypnosis sessions are incredible when you can get
yeah.
to that state. Um, so that's the note that I'm bringing into this quantum healing training, that's happening around the world, is what we can really do when we're together in a prayerful, good way, when we're being
Yeah.
really honest. Magic happens.
It's a sacred thing. We're sacred. I mean,
Yeah,
sometimes we forget, you know, in the mechanics that we create and think we have to do, but it's sometimes it just comes down like the silence you were talking about at that retreat, at that ayahuasca retreat or whatever it was. So what do you think? Let me ask you one more thing before we head out.
mm-hmm.
What what do you think we're going to see in the near future? Let's say 2020. Are you
Hmm.
getting anything specific to 2020 through these sessions?
So I work with two clients in particular, like periodically, like every month or two, I'm working with these same two people because one goes totally under and I'm speaking to whoever I'm speaking to. And with the other one, this is where I'm getting all the information from the Council of Light,
Mm,
from the Earth Council. So working with both of them. The other one is her other aspect is on a ship called the Andromeda that's been hovering outside of the Earth field for probably thousands of years, helping with in different ways. But um, what's being shared a lot is that there's a lot of, one is that 2020 is a massive year of change. Disclosure is being talked about. Potential even things happening with the Vatican I heard about, but that was also just kind of like a potential, no timeline really put on that, but the Vatican may be disclosing in the near future. Massive changes happening in the DNA, continuing and ongoing over this next year. Saying that like in the fall we'll be feeling much more better, but from now until then it's still a lot of change, a lot of clearing happening and going on. But that really there's so many timeline potentials that it could go anyway. You know, I think the election here in the United States is a big one. How we operate as a country here. I think the United States has a lot of power on the global stage when it comes to consciousness and awakening. So those of us that are here in this country that are helping consciousness evolve, America has a loud voice. And while there's a lot that's going on, that's kind of like staining our reputation and all that kind of stuff, or putting a dark cloud over us, we are powerful beings of light. We have access to so much information and resources here. We can make a massive tidal wave of love if we can really learn how to work together. So I think short answer is that there's so much coming, and it's all in our hands, and we can decide which way this boat steers.
That sounds pretty good. It's the same prescription I've been picking up for 9 years.
Yeah.
And no matter what happens, it still comes down to our own stuff.
Our own stuff.
Hey,
yeah.
man, Ron's here. He put up the link for your event
Hi,
for
Ron.
online upcoming events.
Yeah.
So, hey, Ron, what's happening? Hope to see you next time we do a show together. Have both of you sit down again. It's always interesting and colorful. And best of luck to you on completing the book and everything else that you guys are doing. And look forward to collaborating with you guys again, and again and again. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks. I want to just share with everyone, just if you want to check out the newearthascending.org website, there's information how you can get a pre-sale copy of the book, because I'm doing a couple releases as I revise a few things. And you can also check out the Facebook group that we have for New Earth Ascending community. That's kind of where we're sharing more information. So check us out. We'd love to connect with all of you. And thank you so much, Todd, for holding the space that you do, and for being the voice that you are and carrying this love. And you're such a beautiful example of where the masculine embodied form is going. And I just want to thank you for being caring and tender and loving and patient and sweet and all the things that you are.
Well, a lot of those things are very new.
Well, you're wearing them well.
I'm making a joke because we've had the same path evidently, but I appreciate that, and I see the same in you and honor you.
Yeah.
Love you and respect you both, you and Ron.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you're doing, man. It takes big etheric balls to do that. So, I'll see you later.
Thanks. Yeah.
They're growing.
Bye-bye.
Peace out.